Alright guys, so we've got the Sony X90J here for review, and it's one of the very few Sony TVs that have Google TV, as well as Sony's XR engine, which we'll talk more about throughout the review. Just one thing I want to touch upon, Sony TVs are generally more expensive, and whether that's justified or not is something I'll touch upon in more detail towards the end of the video, so stay tuned. But for now, let's talk about the TV. Right off the bat, I've got the 55-inch X90J with 4K resolution and 120Hz refresh rate. Most importantly, it comes with Bravia's XR processor, which is really the highlight of the product. It's a full array LED panel with features like XR Triluminos Pro, XR Contrast Booster, XR Motion Clarity, and XR Surround. But let me be honest, these are all marketing mumbo-jumbos, and what Sony is really trying to say is that they've got their own proprietary software or intelligent processing that they do at the back end to make sure that you get a really nice, enjoyable, pleasant viewing experience. Now, all of this is very difficult to show in a video like this, and I would always recommend that you go to a store and physically look at the product in isolation and see if you like it, and that's the best way to judge a TV. Now, let me quickly take you through the design. I won't spend too much time on it because once it's mounted, it doesn't really matter, but here goes. You're gonna love how it looks in your living room or your bedroom because it's got these really thin bezels. It's really slim and from a distance almost feels bezel-less. It's not the thinnest TV in the price segment, but once you wall mount it, all you need to worry about is whether you will have enough space to reach the ports, and yes you do. Talking about ports, you get 4 HDMI ports, 2 of which are regular HDMI, one is the eARC or the 4K 120Hz port and another 4K 120Hz port. You also get a LAN port and you get 2 USB ports. And if you don't want to use wall mount, you do get these 2 table stands that just get pushed in. I think they raise the TV at a significant height so that the soundbar does not intervene with your viewing experience, so there's ample height. And here's the remote, which I think feels and looks really good. The build quality is amazing, but I do find it difficult to use with just one hand because it's so long. But again, I think you're going to be pretty much restricted to this area. And that's pretty much what you're going to be using the most, so it doesn't matter so much. You do get media controls to go forward or play pause, which I think is really useful, and it works across all apps. Now, you're going to get these shortcuts, but they might be different depending on which region you buy this TV in. And before we get into the more important stuff like, picture clarity and viewing experience, let me quickly touch upon Google TV, which is really good. Sony is the first one to provide Google TV experience right out of the box. The software interface now is much more user-friendly, it's faster and much more improved than what we saw with Android TVs earlier. Now, the look and feel is a lot like what you saw with streaming apps, so it looks very familiar. And of course, because it's Google TV, you get access to TV-compatible apps that are on the Google Play Store, and that's a big one because the Play Store is super rich and comprehensive when it comes to apps. Now, I'll be very honest here. I used to hate Android TVs in the past. They were slow to load, slow to use, and they weren't really TV use friendly. But with Google TV, that changes so much, and I think Android TVs have come a long way to deliver that experience, and I would totally enjoy using the software on this TV now. Alright, now let's come to the more meaningful stuff, the viewing experience. So I've got a 55-inch X90J. It supports 4K resolution at up to 120Hz refresh rate. And without making any changes to the colors right out of the box, the display feels fabulous. Brightness, colors, contrast, all look super vivid. And if you look at some of the videos here, you would get a fair idea. It's an LCD display, backlit using full array LED with local dimming, which means you get much deeper blacks and very high contrast. Now, of course, all of this is captured right through the camera, so it's not accurate by any means, but in reality, things look a lot more saturated, vivid, and punchy in general. And if you're someone who loves to watch movies and TVs a lot on your TV, this is a great choice for that. And the leading reason is the Bravia XR processor. Essentially, the processor will analyze a frame and identify the most probable focus point and enhance that part for more clarity, contrast, color, and motion to ensure you get the best possible picture experience. In other words, it's trying to mimic human vision. That is, when you look at something, you do tend to focus more on something that you're looking at rather than everything else around it. I have a 65-inch LG LCD with nanocell technology, and I can assure you that the picture quality on this is a lot better. I mean, it's so on point, the colors are better, the brightness is better, and I just overall would prefer this picture experience over what I see with my LG 65. Now, of course, it's a generation or 2 generations old, and I think that matters. But in general, This is really good. And I think that's the thing that everyone needs to understand, that just having the same LCD panel across televisions doesn't mean you'll get the same experience. It's the intelligence that really matters. It's how you process imagery that's coming from source and how you finally display it on the television that drives the experience. And not everyone can do that. And that's where XR really matters, I think. And that's why it's more expensive. Now, let's say you're watching something, and one thing that I really liked is that when you tap on settings, it first opens up quick settings, which you are most likely to use. It saves you so much time because you don't have to dig in too much to get to a setting. I love that. And then you can customize this palette of settings based on what you think you use the most of. So there's an edit at the end, and you can turn certain features on or off that you want to access quickly and have those displayed up front. So if I want to quickly cycle through picture modes, I can do that right here without actually going all the way into color settings or picture settings, which of course I can still go and change, individual colors to get the right look that I want. There's also an IMAX enhanced mode, which ensures you experience high fidelity picture and sound in the most optimized way possible. And then there's a Netflix calibrated mode, which is developed especially to experience Netflix original content in the most desired way as the creators intended it. And now let's talk about how it is to view this TV when it's bright daylight outside and your television is placed in a place where there are windows or doors. Well, as long as the content is bright, like one of those TV shows or movies that are bright, you would not have an issue, for example, in this case. But let's say you're watching something which is shot in a very dark scene. You're going to have issues. There's going to be glare even if your brightness settings are set all the way to max. And if your picture mode is also set to Dolby Vision bright, you still may face glare. So something to keep in mind. And when it comes to viewing angles, I think the color retained itself to a pretty good level. So not much of an issue there. And now let's talk about audio. So there are two regular speakers right below the TV. You also get two tweeters at the back, and Sony claims to deliver acoustic multi-audio experience with 3D surround upscaling with these 4 speakers. In other words, you get virtual 5.1 surround sound. There's also a calibration process that the TV runs that optimizes sound output basis where the TV is located. It throws sound and measures the input using inbuilt microphones. And then it just adjusts the sound output to deliver the most optimized audio experience. But there are also a couple of really handy presets that you can use, but I find myself using Dialogue and Cinema the most. Now, in general, I couldn't tell a whole lot of difference after the calibration was over. But again, I think it depends a lot on the kind of space and where you position your TV. So it may not have worked for me, but it may still work for you. And hey, it doesn't harm you to go through that process. In general, if you spend so much on a television, I think getting a soundbar can only elevate your experience, and I highly recommend that you do. But let's say that you don't want to get a soundbar. So here's what I would say. The sound lacks bass. But that's true for most TVs because, all TVs want to be thin. So acoustically, it gets very difficult to achieve the bass. So definitely the treble is high and, it can feel screechy. But as compared to other televisions in the same price segment, I still think it's a pretty good sounding television. The volume's good. It doesn't get, too high that it hurts your ears. It kind of maintains that balance. And then you've got those sound modes that you can change so you can appropriately listen to the kind of content you want to. But I would still always say get a soundbar. That's the way to enjoy these really good televisions. One of the things I really like is that I can just tap on the microphone button on the remote and pretty much ask the TV to do anything. For example, Daredevil on Netflix. And just like that, it's going to search for Daredevil and from YouTube take me to Netflix on that particular show. You can also use Apple HomeKit to watch content, and it has Chromecast built right into, so you can, cast media from your phone onto the TV as long as both devices are on the same network, and it works flawlessly. But yeah, the voice controls is the winner. I mean, the time it can save, the convenience it adds, you just don't have to keep, using a remote to do stuff. I think that's phenomenal. And now, let's talk about gaming. And let me get one thing out of the way. It does not support variable refresh rate just yet. It's supposed to come with a firmware upgrade, and Sony keeps pushing the timeline on it, I guess. But there is no official date just yet. Anyway, with that out of the way, because the contrast is really good, HDR content looks great, and it's Dolby Vision compatible. So if you're playing those kind of games, they're going to look great. I also don't experience any significant input lag in here. Things look really good and responsive, and of course, 120Hz feels a whole lot amazing than the regular 60Hz gaming that I'm used to on my everyday LG television. The only issue is that Dolby Vision does not work at 120Hz, so it's either HDR gaming or it's 120Hz smooth gaming. Now again, if you're a pro gamer, that could be an issue for you, but for casual gamers, I think it's really not a big deal because HDR games at 60Hz still look really good. But yeah, if you're a pro gamer and you're looking for variable refresh rate, low input lag, and HDR gaming at higher refresh rates, there are other gaming TVs that are better suited for that. Not this one, but again, casual gamers, go for it. And lastly, can you use it as a PC monitor? Absolutely, as long as you're sitting at a significant distance because the TV is large, 55 inches, and you're not doing anything that requires very responsive feedback, like playing games that are, for example, FPS shooter games. Other than that, very good. I mean, there is very, very, very minimal lag between the mouse movement, but it can totally be used for web browsing, for, editing Word document, Excel sheets, browsing the web, watching videos. You can do all of that. Alright guys, and that's pretty much it on the X90J, but I do want to touch upon pricing, which I know we all feel is a little too expensive, especially when you compare it to other brands that offer similar specs, but at lower price points. So hear me out. Sony has always been a premium TV brand. They offer premium build quality. They've got that intelligence, that software, or the processing that they put behind their panels to deliver that really rich, immersive visual and sound experiences. And they've got really good products in terms of, their longevity. They go on for years without requiring any kind of repair or maintenance. It's true, even though their support is really great. Now, these are all things that you can't just look at a TV and say, or just look at their price and specs and know all of this stuff. You have to go through living with the TV to know all of this, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's justified price, or I'm not saying it's low because of that, if you consider all of those reasons. I would say you go to a store, look at the television, experience the visual quality, whatever you're getting, and see if it's really worth the money that you're going to put out of your pocket. And this can vary from an individual to individual, It's really subjective that way. So I wouldn't say whether it's true value for money or not, unless you feel it's got what you need, which can vary, as I said. So I hope this was really helpful, guys. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. And as always, if you enjoyed watching the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification icon. I'll see you guys in the next one.